Knew the jet. Not as good as you, but
Way smarter than the rest of us.
he was real smart.
Yeah.
Very smart.
Okay.
He just said that.
Oh, well, okay. Are we ready? Okay. I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
It's quiet.
Okay, I'm giving it, it's 5:59.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
All right. I'd like to take all of y'all afterwards out to eat dinner out back. I just don't have the money, so y'all just can't do it tonight. But I'd like to. Thank you.
All right, good evening, everyone. It is 6 p.m. Tuesday, May 6th, 2025. I'll call to order the board meeting for the Keystone Heights Airport Authority. I will ask everyone, please stand for prayer and then pledge of allegiance. Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we pause to give you thanks and praise for your grace, your love, and your mercy. We ask, Father, that you give us wisdom tonight as we undertake the business of the airport. We pray for our first responders, Lord, that you keep them safe, bring them home safely to their families. Continue to bring a healing to our nation. I pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Mr. Kuhn, roll call, please. Here.
All right. Here. Mr. Dashner?
Here.
Mr. Ludwig?
Here.
Ms. Hall?
Here.
General Eppert?
Here.
And Colonel Bernie?
Here. All right. Any public comments?
No, sir.
All right. Moving on to our consent agenda, item 2 on the agenda. We had received by email approval. We had received the March 2025 financials. We had also received the April 1st, 2025 Keystone Heights Airport Authority Board meeting minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I make a motion that we approve it.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Got a motion by Colonel Bernie and a second by Ms. Terry Hall. Any questions, discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Let me stop right here just real quick, just to say, Mayor, good to have you with us. Mayor Rodenroth tonight. Also, a new city council member, Mr. Dave Welch. Good to have you, sir. Thank you for being here. So good to have our city representatives with us. So moving on, reports. Mr. Prang.
Okay, good evening, members of the board and the public. I have 2 quick reports and 1 accolade. So the first report is on the West Side Service Road. We're constructing a fence project that's funded by the FDOT. All of the fencing is complete. The fence is grounded with ground rods and the gate is installed. The gate's chained shut and we're stopped. The electrician has had a problem getting material deliveries, so they're waiting on the electrical panel, some grounding lugs, some wire, and the precast concrete pole that has to be installed. So probably no action over there until the first week of June. So the site is secure and what they've done is acceptable. They've been paid partially for the work they've accomplished, but we're going to kind of stand down over there until the electrician can get materials in. I got an email today just to document that so that we aren't just listening to a story. I provided it to the FDOT. I'm sure they will not object. Delivery of materials is still a problem in the world today, so this is kind of a regular happening with construction projects. Let's see, second thing to report on is the hangar project. We are out to bid on the bulk hangar project. We had a pre-bid meeting last week. The plans have been distributed for almost 2 weeks now. We had 16 people at the pre-bid meeting, had another 5 contractors come out to the job site today to look around. So I don't know that all of them will bid the project, but there's been a variety of general contractors, site work contractors, and electricians taking an interest in bidding the project. I think the good part of that is competition and a lot of participation usually helps to drive prices low in the competitive bidding environment. So let's hope that holds up. We are working on answering a few questions that the contractors answered. So we'll push out an addendum probably by Friday. And I'm in communication with Craig on a regular basis there. I think probably next week, there'll be some other contractors that want to come look at that. We'll open bids on May 29th. At your next meeting on June 3rd, I will, hopefully, if everything goes well, I'll have a recommendation for an award of contract. And immediately after that, by June 6th, we will submit a grant application for the first grant to fund that project. The project will take 3 total grants to fund, 2 from the FAA and 1 from the FDOT. It takes like a derivative equation to explain all of that, so I'm happy to do that if anybody wants to, but I won't take up board time to explain how all the funding shakes out. Craig and I have a meeting tomorrow afternoon with the FDOT to bring them up to speed on projects that we're waiting on their funding, just to make sure we're aligned and they're aligned. The last one is an accolade. It's actually, I'm going to steal it. I don't know that it belongs to me, but last week, I think, Craig received some new aerial photographs framed. The company that provided them is named Wolpert. Wolpert is working for us on the airport master plan project. Their task was to fly new aerial photos. This is the pretty picture version of the photo. We actually get a stereographic photo with 3D elevation information. And Wolpert uses that to identify obstructions off the end of all approaches and 10 nautical miles out in all directions. So this is the pretty picture result. There's 2 of them. I have no idea where Craig's gonna hang them, but I thought while I was standing up, I would grab an accolade. So any questions for me?
Looks good.
Thanks.
Any with lease boundary lines on
No,
Just kidding.
no, we can add that, but nothing, they're not, you gotta add a little red Sharpie.
Rich.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bryan. Mr. Taylor,
Yes, sir.
like for your input and advice with respect to the letter that we just received from DOT, firm letter.
The letter, email letter dated April 16.
Yes.
Yes, I think all the board members have seen that letter. That letter concerns firms pending track reconfiguration plans. And what's notable about the letter is that it expresses firms' expectation that the airport is going to pay for that track reconfiguration. The factual circumstances as I see them are that the track reconfiguration is necessitated by firms' predecessors' construction of the track outside the leasehold boundary and into a safety zone, and that construction was done without any authorization from the airport to do so outside the lease boundary. And in those circumstances, I'm not aware of any law that would require the landlord to pay for the tenant's reconfiguration of the track so as to bring it back within its own leasehold boundary. I think that's my comment.
All right. Any questions, discussion from the board?
I have a question. As far as that goes, and with you saying that, should there have been interaction from the airport authority at that time when that was being built like that? When you say that the previous tenant that had built the track prior to the firm, during that construction phase, wouldn't that have been something that the airport authority should have been involved with as far as making sure permits were done and just the locations and?
That was the tenant's responsibility under the lease to get authorization. And they
And,
did it.
and the airport authority has just had no obligations to that at all. That's just, I guess that's what I'm asking.
I don't think Florida law imposes on a landlord the duty to police the tenant's compliance with his lease.
During the time that the lease transferred with the airport authority, should have, or would there have been a necessity to look into
Yeah.
the whole setup and everything as the lease was changing over in 2012?
No,
The airport authority would have no reason to do anything on that. That's,
know of anything about the transfer of the lease from European Rally to firm that would have called to the landlord's attention a need to do anything other than to review the terms of the documents proposing to transfer the lease responsibility.
and then whose responsibility was that?
The board in consultation with this lawyer at that time.
And everyone, and everything approved as is?
The transfer of the lease was approved. You know that. You see the documents.
Well, that's why I'm asking that. That's what I'm saying. So, and there's no obligations as far as that goes. As far as airport legal
We want to
counsel,
make sure that the prior tenant's improvements have been within its own leasehold boundary? No. I don't think Florida law or common sense would impose such a duty on the airport.
But to answer the direct question, I would say that's an obvious no in one word. Not only is it, there are no obligation on the airport's part to fund any such thing on the tenant's part of a non-aeronautical activity in the middle of the aircraft operations area, but in considering that, it would be inappropriate use of airport funds.
I don't disagree with that. I think this whole exercise is an attempt by firm to shift its predecessors and its responsibilities under the lease to the landlord. And I don't see any legal basis or factual basis for that to happen.
So what we need to do as a board is have a decision tonight as to how we want the attorney to respond, because the correspondence has been between legal counsels as things come up. So what is what's the wish of the board?
Simple, no.
Do I have a consensus?
Is there any need to, I guess, seek additional legal opinions on the board's culpability for what he was talking about? It does seem, as I just try to think about it in my head from a standpoint, if I were if I signed a lease thinking that I had my property was proper with the landlord, and then to find out after the fact that, no, the previous guy did something, the previous owner of the house or that I'm buying or whatever, or leasing, had done something with the property that put it, I'm just trying to understand whose culpability truly is it for what happened prior to the firm's occupation and of the lease.
I would
It would
have
be their predecessor.
I would have no quarrel whatsoever if the airport wished to obtain another legal opinion. This is a serious issue.
Yeah,
I wouldn't quarrel with that at all.
I just want to make sure we're right. Because I agree.
Too.
And and I know Bobby, we're all trying to do the right thing. We all got a heart. We all understand that, there's culpability on people prior to us on both sides, their side and ours, right? And yet, ultimately, we're at a standoff where we want to be good landlords and we want them to be good lessees. And yet, right now, we're at this Mexican standoff. So I just want to know for sure that we're in the right when we say that we have no requirement, no responsibility to you or lessee to mitigate the circumstances of their assuming a lease that was actually already in violation of the property boundaries, right?
But
And-
apparently without anybody's actual knowledge at that time.
Right.
Right, and so.
I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't know about the firm's predecessor, what they knew or didn't know. I've never seen anything to suggest that anybody acting for the airport at that time, when the track was built in about 2006, if that's what it was, or at the time that the lease was transferred to firm in about 2012, I think it was. I've never seen anything to suggest that anybody acting for the airport had any actual knowledge that there was this breach of the lease by European Rally.
Right, but could a reasonable man, court, judge, whatever, look at it and say, well, as a landlord, you do have a responsibility to know when you are leasing a property that the lessee who's assuming that lease is no longer in the boundaries that they think they are. You know what I mean?
I don't think there's such a legal duty, General.
Okay. That's,
But I understand the issue.
yeah,
And again, I would welcome it if the board wanted to get a second opinion from another attorney.
yeah, I don't know. if-
My only request would be that you find somebody who knows this area of the law well.
Yeah, exactly. Real estate attorney, I'm not trying to insinuate that you don't know it. I'm just wondering, I just want to make sure we're right.
I don't take it that way at all.
Right, yeah,
Like I said, it's an important issue.
yeah.
And I don't quarrel with the board wishing to have a second opinion before it decides on a final course of action.
And I'm not even saying that's what I'm suggesting. I just want to talk about it and see if,
The thing is, that type of activity, where it's at on the airport, was not approved by the airport and not approved by the FAA, which is also a requirement. So if those involved with the airport at the time had no knowledge that it was constructed in the manner it was constructed, everything on this airport has to be approved by FAA
right,
inside the aircraft operations area,
right,
any kind of construction.
right. I'm just thinking about, and it would be different if the current lessee was the one who did that construction, right? I think it's somewhat, in my mind, different, a little bit less of a threshold of illegitimacy, if you will, by the fact that they assumed a lease thinking that it was a lease that was a proper one,
Did they know? I don't know.
right? Neither did we.
All I know
So
is
there is
airport people
culpability, I
didn't know.
think, on the board, whether realizing that it's not us, but our predecessors. I would think there would be some culpability on the board that you make sure that a lease boundary is accurate when the lessee assumes the lease, right? And so that's where I kind of feel a little bit, I guess, some sympathy for their position because they didn't do it. They assumed the lease in good faith that what they were getting was already an approved lease that the board, had, you know what I mean? It'd be different if they violated the lease boundaries and then, and now they're
see
trying
what
to
you're
get forgiveness.
saying.
They assumed the lease that they thought in
To
good
answer
faith.
the question that they opposed,
Right,
I firmly say that, no, we cannot pay anything towards the reconstruction of that track.
I understand. And I don't disagree with you. I'm
Yeah.
more trying to understand our original sin culpability of this lease that they assumed, thinking that it was a lease that was in good standing, when in fact it was not.
Yeah,
Well, if we wish to put it in those terms, the original sin was European rallies.
Right, exactly.
So.
Which is not the firm,
Who's
so,
going to be
Right.
visited with that sin?
right, exactly.
And that takes over from them, or the airport who never.
Exactly.
approved the-
And I would like to be certain that a judge or someone would look at this and say, the landlord has some culpability here because they let this lease be assumed by someone in good faith, thinking that their property was within the boundary, but it wasn't. And so to what extent is there any culpability on the board for not having gotten a survey to make sure before the lease was signed that everything associated with the boundary was in line? Does that make sense?
So for all the properties that I've ever purchased, I've paid a surveyor
Right.
to survey the property.
And why wasn't that done?
Here,
Because
have to ask the
it
firm.
chose not to.
Right.
You'd have to ask the firm.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd like to speak to the
That's
idea.
an interesting, I'm sorry, that's an interesting analogy too, because in the ordinary buyer-sell context in real estate transactions, it's not the seller who pays for a survey, it's the
Right,
buyer who pays for
right.
a survey.
Sure.
It's up to the buyer whether the buyer wants to confirm that what it's buying is what it actually thinks it's
Right.
buying.
Exactly. And I realize it's a little bit different with a landlord and a lessee, but I don't know to what extent the lessee has a leg to stand on when they say, well, we assume this lease in good faith, assuming that the landlord wouldn't let us sign a lease that was in violation of the property boundaries of the lease. You know what I mean? And so that's the part that I wonder what a judge or a reasonable jury or whatever that would look at it would say, no, you guys really do have some culpability here. And now we get in this long litigation versus trying to find some type of other compromise solution. So anyway.
I think your idea of getting a second legal opinion is noble and it's good, but I'm going to give you a hypothetical situation. If we do that, and that attorney, he or she disagrees with Mr. Taylor's purview, then what are we going to do? Are we going to relent and go on that attorney? No, it's going to lead down the rabbit hole. Now we're going to have to get a third attorney to see if two attorneys agree that Jim's wrong or one sides with Jim. Unfortunately, the attorney's not the issue. Jim has a very good in-depth knowledge of the law, and we've trusted him for a number of years. And the problem I see, I think, regardless of what they're broadcasting over there, we are negotiating in good faith. We haven't slammed the door on this deal. There's still some of us at the table that are still trying to make this work. And whether they believe that's sincere or not, we're here discussing this.
Sure.
Ultimately, it'll be their decision if we get into litigation. We can't stop them from filing.
Sure.
Am I correct?
Correct.
And if we do, then a judge tells us we're liable, then we're liable, or we can appeal. But I agree, there should be no airport funds going towards any repaving of that. We should help them if we can in approving permits or grants or whatever they need. But the taxes raised off of fuel sales, the FAA would never go for that. I don't see that happening.
I'm sorry, what does that mean?
Well, any of these DOT grants we get and FAA, where do those, FAA comes from fuel taxes
Yes.
and DOT comes from other taxes, I think fuel at the pumps and everything too. So what I'm saying is neither one of those groups is going to agree to fund
Oh, for their
with the
reconstruction.
public's tax dollar, a private entity that is in business for profit. I don't see how that would ever fly. So that's going to be upon us to have to pay for that out of our money. So why wouldn't we go before a judge and find out if we really have culpability? I'm not saying we don't, but I think getting another attorney's opinion is going to muddy the water. And I don't mean any disrespect to you.
No, that's why I brought it up, so we could talk about it.
I think we're better off deciding on whatever our stance is, and we do have disagreement at the table, but we try to do it respectfully. And I am trying to be calmer. I get so animated sometimes. I apologize for my behavior in the past, but we've got to keep a cool head about this. And if they want to take it to litigation, that's where it's going to go. There's no stopping it. The last time we were in litigation, what was it, 11 years we were in it?
10.
10, okay.
Years?
I can't believe that this litigation would take that long. This is, I think simpler, even though I'm not an attorney. I think it's more cut and dried than the litigation we were in. But I think we make a decision as to what we want to do. But I think bringing another attorney in is just going to make things a little more confusing. That's just my opinion.
Okay. I'm a B student, and I don't think anybody in this room is going to go for paying $400,000 to redo their track, okay? However,
Do we have an estimate, actually?
I thought that's what am
I
I
haven't
wrong?
seen, I wasn't aware.
No, I don't think I
It
saw
wasn't a
that.
400,000? Okay.
Does anyone have an estimate?
It was thrown out as a very loose estimate.
Of how much?
Well, one number was 60,000.
And the other
was
one?
400,000.
400,000. I didn't make that up. Okay. So Jim, you're the expert, okay? And your advice was, or not advice, was you had no problem if we did get another attorney, okay? I guess where I look at this, if we really might be liable, I'm not gonna go one way or the other, okay? Would we really want to know that from another attorney that deals with this? All I'm saying, I hear what Scott's saying, and I'm gonna put it on your shoulders, and then I'm gonna make not a recommendation, but I'll give a name. Dougie Burnett, St. John's Law Firm, he was on the Airport Authority at St. Augustine. Somebody who deals with airports, not just part-time, but deals with it all the time. I don't know who that would be, Jim. That's gonna be on you, okay?
Well, I think the real discipline that one would look for here for an opinion would be a lawyer who's schooled in landlord-tenant law.
Okay.
That's really, whether it's an airport lease or
Okay.
a non-airport lease, our relationship to our tenant is governed by Florida landlord-tenant law.
Okay. So if you were to do whoever you think would be another, we trust you. It's not an issue of that. It's,
I understand, but
yeah,
lawyers' opinions are just that. It's an opinion of what a judge will do.
Well,
There's no science to it.
No, and I
there's
get
room-
that.
There's room for other attorneys to have different opinions.
and I think that's
These
why
subjects.
General Eifert goes, well, what if we had another opinion, not just yours, to say, okay, if somebody else said, you guys are in trouble. If they did say that, here's where I'll go and I'll shut up. Now you're talking, them coming after us for 400,000 is nothing compared to 1,000 or two to get somebody else's opinion to look at it, to back you up, or to say,
Not.
or what's that, or not,
Not.
yeah, their opinion, I get that. But I'm like with General Alfred, I'm going to spend a little bit of money to get somebody else to look at this, because we don't want to be liable for $400,000. We
Well,
want to partner with them and do what we
I
can,
feel the same way
Yeah.
that you do.
yeah,
I don't want the airport to be liable for something you shouldn't be liable for.
right,
And I have no quarrel with getting a second opinion at all.
okay,
And the other thing I was wondering about it is if, let's say, for example, they saw that we were liable, if they also put punitive,
yeah.
you
So this could
punitive
really,
actions on us to say, okay, you also owe them for loss of revenue for the past 6 months where they weren't able to use the track or anything like that. So that's why I just want to know that we're right. If I know I'm right, then the answer is easy to me. It's the part that, for me, I'm just because I'm ignorant, I
right.
don't know what is our actual
So
liability.
I'm in agreement that, I know that Jim feels very confident in what he's recommended, but he's also very agreeable to having another attorney look at it. I would think that we would rely on Jim to find that real estate attorney, whatever that particular landlord.
Can I say it, Jim?
Yeah,
All right, let me just share with everyone. I have had some conversation with another attorney, and Jim knows about this. And this individual is an aviation law practicing attorney in Jacksonville. In fact, he's done some work for this airport before, Ed Booth. And
Who
just
is
to
it?
let everybody know,
Ed Booth.
okay,
he is, as I understand our conversation, I think he would probably be a little bit more aggressive than Jim, but he does not disagree with Jim's analysis of the situation. Would I say that's correct?
that's my understanding of Ed's approach. I was involved in one conversation with him,
Right,
with you on the line too.
right.
I have a lot of respect for Ed. He's in Jacksonville. He's a tremendous lawyer.
But does he specialize in landlord tenant type issues?
We certainly.
He has been, he told me he has been involved in those types of
Yeah,
disagreements with airports.
he'd be upfront with us about that. I feel certain that it's capable of rendering an informed opinion about this issue. And the board's done a good job of fleshing out what the nub of the matter comes down to. So it's a fairly straightforward, factual issue, I think.
Yeah,
Well, can I also say, okay, so let's say we get another person. We've heard from Ed Booth indirectly through you. And let's say that attorney can change Jim's mind and says, you know what? Talking to this guy, he's right. Are we still just going to give the money freely? We don't want a chance. I don't know where I remember this from, Jim, but in one of our workshops or something years ago, I thought you told me or told our group that if an entity comes after like a municipal airport, that if they try to sue and there's a chance that it could bankrupt that entity, that the judge would not let that go through. Am I wrong on that?
I think you're speaking about a little bit different context, Scott. I mean, public entities can file bankruptcy.
Okay.
Creditors can force public entities as well as private entities into bankruptcy. So I know the situation you're talking about, but I think it was in a little bit different context.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying, even if another attorney and he said, yeah, you're liable, I just would have a hard time giving up our funds to do something like that. It's because our money comes from the public. We are a municipal airport and we're taking taxpayer dollars to fix something over there. Maybe they wouldn't be taxpayer. I guess it's our profit. But if we had to go borrow money, that could jeopardize future projects in the airport. So, you know, if y'all want to, if it's the board's thing that we pay an attorney $5,000 for a second opinion, but even if that attorney says that he thinks we should pay it, I still want it to go before a judge. I want to know what a judge will do. That would just be my point.
What would be the process? I don't know how,
It would be up to them to start the litigation or,
but then it would end
because
up,
it doesn't matter how many attorneys, their attorneys are telling them one thing. Their attorney is on their team, and I understand that. But they're gonna be the ones, I don't wanna sue the firm.
well.
They're gonna be
here's the thing.
suing us if anything. We're not, you know.
I'm gonna say, to answer the question, I say no. But they're the ones, their operation has caused the airport to be in potential non-compliance with the FAA. And that's gotta be rectified. But to answer their question, no, we cannot put in airport funds toward their operation. That would not be appropriate.
So I think we're back to the point of the question of, do we want to obtain alternate counsel that specializes in landlord-tenant type issues to take a look at what Jim has been handling for us and get their opinion? Is that where we're at?
I don't think it's essential or necessary. I think Jim's got a good handle on it.
Do you need a motion or you just looking for a consensus?
Can I just say one thing? I mean, Scott had a good point. I mean, even if you have another lawyer come in and say, oh, yeah, we're not going to just, I just don't see us going and taking that money and just fixing it. I mean,
Well,
that doesn't seem like the way that we would operate.
I think that's a separate issue. I think what we're trying to answer is what General Eifert was questioning, is what is the culpability of the board? And doing our due diligence, as we've been doing, because now we're into this thing, how long, Craig? 18, 20 months now? So I think that's what the board's got to make a decision on. And I think it's important enough that it be in the form of a motion, if that we want to pursue that, and have a vote by the board.
One more
it's
comment.
a valid question though, I think, you know, because thinking through the second and third order effects of it, right? And the following consequences, if we did find that, like, your assumption is that we were culpable for the
If that
lessee.
second one came
Right.
back and said that,
Right.
yeah, then where does that put us?
Right, that's a
Well,
great.
wait a minute, like, I think Scott's scenario, who's going to say that we're culpable? It would have to be a judge, would it not?
In the end, I would say we would
But-
vote for that.
If we pushed it to that, or based on that information, we may decide to do something different.
Bingo.
I think what we're looking for right now is just additional legal counsel and advice on this particular item.
And David, what that would give us is a little bit more assurance above and beyond Jim, which we trust. But if we did that, now we go, there could be more on us than what we're willing to admit right now. And if that was the case, would it change the way that we try to negotiate with them to go redo the track? I think that's where we're missing it. I think all it's going to do for us is probably not change it, but it gives us a little bit more reassurance that, number one, we're not going to go pay $400,000 to redo this track. But what we might could do is work with them to go, we don't want to go to court, okay? And yes, we do see that there might be some liability on us, not all of it, but we're willing to negotiate with you. Right now, I don't think we're willing to negotiate because we don't think we've done anything wrong.
Right.
I don't think we've done anything wrong intentional, but I think there is some not intentional.
No.
Could they win it in court? One more advice might help us decide which way we want to go for a couple of thousand. I don't know if it's 5,000. I don't know. That's Jim's world. He could come back and go, hey, here's a guy that I recommend, Ed Booth, and he could do it for $2,000 and he'll give us his honest opinion and then we can make a decision on that. But I guess what you're saying, we need to vote. Do we want to go that route?
So it appears we really have two questions. One is the question, or the answer for are you going to pay any money for us? And two, do we want to have additional counsel?
That's up to Jim.
No, I think, right, what's before us now is the alternate counsel
Right.
to look at this. And then, depending on that decision or that advice, then we formulate our response.
I think it might also depend on how soon we can get that advice too, right? I mean, if it takes them 6 months to
Right.
get an answer to us, now we're just
Dang it.
dragging along.
That would not be
Yeah.
appropriate.
No, and that won't be appropriate because the FAA, remember, guys, Craig has put together that
Right.
voluntary corrective action plan.
Sure.
It has timeline, it has milestones on it.
Yeah.
So we're going to continue to report to the FAA, but it also still doesn't relieve the burden off of the firm that they've got to get their ducks in a row
Right.
with respect to what that reconfiguration plan is and what they're proposing. So back to the question, alternate legal.
Somebody make a motion, please.
How soon could it get done, do you think, realistically?
I can't speak for another lawyer's
Yeah.
availability.
Yeah. Wasn't Mr. Booth the guy we talked to that was busy till
Could be
October?
Done within a couple of weeks.
Okay.
If we get, I mean,
But he wasn't available till October, he said, right?
pardon me?
Mr. Booth wasn't available till October, didn't he say?
Well, he said he would not be available to take this whole matter on,
Mm-hmm.
just treating it as a lawsuit.
Yeah.
I know that he was excluding the possibility that we could ask him for a targeted opinion
Okay.
on a discrete set of facts and get that
Right.
within a reasonable time.
Okay.
He'd be the first one to tell us whether he could or couldn't.
Right.
Jim, do you think it was $5,000? Is that legit, or do you think best
I think
advice?
that would be the high end.
Right, okay. Okay,
I would-
yeah, okay.
I liked it better when we had him on, like irrigation mode there.
The sun was.
He was sweating it, right?
Well, Councilman Welsh has so much hair on his head, I didn't want him, the sunburn was the issue I was concerned about.
If it were the board's wish to see if Ed could do it, I mean, there's a lot of attorneys in this category, but he's among the attorneys whose opinions I would pay attention to. If he came up with a different opinion than mine, then I would have to start rethinking mine. But there are other lawyers in that category too.
Okay, so David, I make a motion that we let Jim make the contact to Ed Booth and see what he recommends, estimates the price would be and how soon he could get it done. Can we do that? Is that okay? Or you're saying we need to go further and we need to make a recommendation to go ahead and get another opinion?
I think we need, from what I'm hearing, is we need to get the
Another.
second opinion.
Okay, all right. So I make a motion that we get a second
Before
opinion.
you do that,
Well,
Okay?
it shouldn't be up to Jim to have to get a hold. Jim was gonna advise us of someone, is the way I understood it. And then we make the contact. Isn't that the way it should work?
I'd prefer Jim do the contact simply.
Okay, you do wanna do that?
Right.
They could
Right.
communicate
Right.
lawyer to
Okay.
lawyer.
Right.
Okay.
They
And
speak that lawyer language.
exactly.
Are you gonna put a cap on the dollar amount we spend, or?
We don't know that. Jim's gonna have to ask him of what do you think it would be, and then when we vote,
If this is the board's wish, I'm happy to reach out to Ed. I'll give him a call tomorrow. I'll acquaint him with, the targeted opinion we'd be looking at him to provide. He could tell us if he can do it within a reasonable timeframe. And if he is, I'll ask him, what he thinks his fee would be. I could come back to the board.
What if we gave you authorization to go up to $5,000 in that, and then just get it done, as opposed to having to wait another month to,
Okay?
That's what I was just saying, maybe amend your motion to include a cap or something.
I'm good with that.
What if Ed says, I don't have the time for it?
I would think that we would trust you to find someone else that you think
Right.
opinion would be valuable.
I agree.
If you do, I've got some other people in mind.
Okay.
Yeah, I totally trust,
I'm looking for somebody who's gonna give me an independent opinion.
Right.
not just say,
Exactly.
Right.
exactly. Yeah,
Because again, this is important.
Yeah.
And we all need to make sure we've done everything we can
Right.
to make sure we get it right.
exactly.
Okay, do I need to amend my motion or we're good?
Yeah, amend it, if you will.
Okay, so I make a motion that we let Jim contact Ed Booth to see what his availability is and how much he would charge, up to $5,000 if it works. If not, then Jim is cleared to find somebody else to represent us with another opinion. Okay,
All right, we have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
All right, we've had a lot of discussion. Let's call for the vote. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
Appreciate it.
Thank you all. I
Look forward to hearing, if you'll just email Craig, maybe with what you get, and he can
I'll
send
do
that
it.
out to us. All right, very good.
So that means we are tabling answering the question. For the time being.
I think necessarily so.
Yes.
All right.
In the meantime,
Yeah, we'll table a response.
Craig, can you give us an update on what their status is currently on the track and the effort that has to be done to level and remove barriers and all that?
Well, I can't give an answer to all that, but
Okay.
we're currently waiting on a response from JB Pro.
That's to do a new track, right?
So what we're waiting on is for them to provide an estimate of what it would cost to provide preliminary drainage, cost. There was another preliminary bill. What was it? Design.
Geometric design of a new track configuration.
So right now,
Well, we're not waiting on the actual design to show up in our email inbox. It's what it's gonna cost to provide that. And that's,
To be clear, the airport's not waiting for that.
well,
The
correct.
firm
right,
is waiting
right.
for their consultant, who they've selected to work with
And-
JB
and-
Pro.
I did get an email today that we should expect that tomorrow, by end of day.
so the current status is they are operating on their track, and it's legal because of the changes we've made to the categories of the approaches, right?
Correct.
Okay, so we're in compliance with the FAA's requirements right now, based on the waiver. And that is a 6-month waiver,
It's a 30-day rolling.
30-day rolling. So,
So they're still operating outside their lease boundary?
yes, because we have a waiver for the aircraft categories that are approaching.
For runway one
For
more,
1129.
Right.
right?
So so how's this working? Have we gotten to a 30-day point already where now we have to request an additional 30 days?
I don't know that we need to request an additional 30 days. The FAA has not asked me for any info. Yes, we have passed the 30-day mark.
But wasn't that the agreement that we would
I
request
thought it had to be
30-day
renewed every
extensions
30 days
30
too, but
Okay, well, I did try to call Melissa on Monday and did not get an answer, but I had planned to wait until after the meeting today to advise her of our status.
Okay, so what exactly are they expecting from us in order to continue to permit us this waiver? Are we having to demonstrate some type of progress toward,
Yes.
so are we doing that in your opinion?
I guess I don't have an opinion on that.
well, that was the timetable you laid out, and it was contingent upon them following the month-by-month timeline steps. And if they did that, if I recall correctly, the FAA would extend that 30 days, month by month, if they are working forward.
And
That's what I remember at the
and we
meeting, and
think
maybe I'm
we are
wrong.
working
No,
forward because we have,
You remember that correctly.
Yeah,
and we think that they are moving forward because of their request for this engineering
I
design
think
and all that.
that is in that direction, yes, sir.
well, Craig also attached that Excel spreadsheet, I think y'all saw. And it looks like he's got communication like every couple of days. I don't see too many days where there isn't a phone call or a meeting or.
Right.
So the firm looks like they're doing stuff here and, you know,
They've submitted their permit, Craig,
A pre-application.
pre-application.
That's what the St. John's Water?
Yeah,
Okay, so
Is that meeting
Sounds-
scheduled?
No, it was just recently assigned an engineer, so I've not heard from that engineer.
The pre-application with water management is just a meeting. You're requesting a meeting is what you're doing there. It's not a,
okay,
you said submitted. I don't want anybody to think anything
No, no,
was
you-
submitted. It's just you're submitting a request for a pre-application meeting.
gotcha.
seems to me appropriate that we do a 30-day update on each of our meetings, just to,
Sure.
just to be comfortable that
I expected
they're
that.
meeting their end of the bargain, and we are, doing what the FAA wants us to do as well. So maybe each meeting here for the next couple of months till we get this resolved, we can listen to your
I
assessment.
can't wait to provide it.
I appreciate the Excel spreadsheet, actually. It kind of gives us a lot of good feel for, we're working it and moving forward, so.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
I think there is progress. It's slow.
Yeah,
I know they had some delays, Craig had shared with me, when they were trying to get a hold of JB Pro.
yeah.
And so that was to be expected. I think the FAA understands that, there may be delays
Right.
of that nature, and especially once we get into the permitting process, or they get into the permitting process. So I think there is some progress being made. Right.
Are you moving on?
Yes, sir. Unless you have some.
Get Mr. Banks on my line item. He needs to drive to Eglin Air Force Base tonight. Is that possible to move him up?
That's a bummer.
Craig, you want to introduce him? And
Yes, Mr. Tyson Banks, he's a tenant here, has a couple of hangars, a couple of airplanes. We've got to know each other pretty well over the last year and a half, and so Tyson is looking to potentially lease some ground. I didn't expect necessarily a decision tonight in any way, but it was just to introduce you to him and kind of what he wants to do long-term and get that ball rolling.
Mr. Banks?
Thanks for having me. It's actually been nice to see the process here that I've spent about the last 20 years getting shot at defending. It's kind of neat. Robert's Rules of Order since I was in college and days. Yeah, I'd like to just take a quick second, give you guys a little bit of background on me, where I've been, where I'm at, where I'd like to go. Tyson Banks, 43 years old, from D-Land, Florida. Florida native. I went to UCF where I did mechanical engineering. Was working for Lockheed Martin, college intern on 9/11. Had a top secret security clearance, which was just mostly lasers and things in the F-22. But 9/11 hit and I wanted to do something. So I went into a recruiter's office and was told ROTC. So I didn't really like the ROTC, didn't really fit, but ended up getting recruited in a whole different rabbit hole that I didn't even know existed. So I spent the last 20 years in more of the intelligence special activities realm. Over 6 years boots on the ground in Afghanistan, a little over 2.5 in Iraq, Spent in Kosovo just for fun. Just kind of neat. And then about 10 years ago, I met my wife, Haley Stewart, who's from Melrose. Even being from Deland, I didn't know where Melrose was.
Hey.
She's now a doctor over at North Florida Regional area. And, yeah. And we have a 3-year-old daughter. We go to Trinity Baptist Church where we were married 10 years ago. Pastor Peoples married us and been members ever since. So currently, I have spent, like I said, the last 20 years kind of down some kind of darker classified rabbit holes, and I have shifted more to training. It was last Christmas, I was in Yemen and decided my 2-year-old, I should probably be home for Christmas is coming home. So I moved over into the training realm and started bringing a lot of it to Camp Blanding, across Camp Blanding Joint Training Center. I realized I could bring training evolutions there with different military special operations groups I do. And I could be at home at night and then get paid as a consultant and do that. So that's kind of how I met Craig. I also have a Lake Amphibian. I fly floatplanes, and I have a Cessna 02, a true military Vietnam 02. Just currently in mod to be put into a restricted category, experimental R&D, because it's the same NATO lugs on the bomb racks on the 02 as are on the Predator drones and most of the other military autonomous vehicles. So you can use that aircraft to test signals payloads and other things in national airspace and in restricted airspace, which happens to be right off the end of runway 5. If you don't make a pretty quick turn, you'll end up there. So yeah, I've been doing that. And then I've been helping Craig as I've been around. I've been bringing some of my aircraft in, some STOL stuff we do over on short takeoff and landing training we do over on Camp Landing. I train a group of individuals, paramilitary officers, twice a year. And we do medical training, driving, other stuff in the area. Twin Otters, I've had an amphibious caravan through here, a C-130J once or twice, and then Craig is actually, I've helped, I'm finding out at 43, all the people I fought in Afghanistan with are now 05s, 06s in the military. And it's kind of like, who let my friends be in charge of things? They are now in charge of training and budgets and things like that. So yeah, it just happened. We randomly had a Black Hawk unit from Tampa. It came in and I offered to help out before I'd even seen him over the CTAP frequency. What's up, Tyson? Didn't know who it was. It's a friend of mine actually flying these flightly. Same thing with the 160th. The Night Stalkers were in town doing some training, and I know those guys from Afghanistan, work with them quite a bit. So anyway, I helped facilitate that. There's been some kind of confusion. The airport's always been really good about hosting military units, but they don't speak general aviation, and most of the attendants here don't speak military aviation. I happen to do both, so I've offered services to Craig free of charge to just kind of help marshal airplanes and stack so we don't have 8 military helicopters sitting off Alpha Taxiway. You know, it's kind of imposing when you're a student pilot coming down runway 23 and you see a bunch of blades turning and things. So it made sense to me to move them over to the west side, facilitate operations. Kind of last with Florida Guard, tried to help out that. There was some confusion. Scott kind of can elaborate on some of that. I didn't have an official position really to tell them where to go or not. Knots was trying to, but there's some confusion. Anyway, it kind of made me realize that there's a business to be made in this. Most of these units have training and budgets that will facilitate exercises. So that's kind of where I'm at now in a transition in my life. I'm still doing contract and consulting work, but wife's a doctor, she's doing pretty well. So I'd like to actually build a business here to where initial phase 1 is targeting military special operations training that's going on at Camp Landing, but facilitation here. Just by accident alone of knowing the people, they can get fuel on base, they can get fuel anywhere they want. I've just kind of, as a, hey, buy fuel here. And have brokered a little over 3,000 gallons, I think, the last few months. Would have been about double that if my military buddies hadn't hit the fence off Governor's Road with a fuel truck. Then we got told to stay on base. There's a, intent, to do that. So that phase 1 is that. I'd like to start with just facilitating training, and I can do that almost immediately. My plan would be in the southwest corner, makes the most sense to me, roughly 10 acres down there, to where I could put some temporary structures to get going and then just validate this business to myself. Admittedly, I'm new to this, but I have a lot of really good mentors. The reason I have an 02 is a mentor of mine that I worked for once upon a time just got confirmed as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. General John Dan Kane is a friend of mine and a mentor who owned the 02. He's decided.
Friend of mine too.
Yeah.
You've seen so much that I.
Yeah. So luckily I've got a lot of contacts in that can help you go forward with it. But phase one would be that, targeting military and special operations activities, also with a benefit to the airport of kind of having official coordination here. If you get a phone call, Craig did, you could, kick them over to me, and for a small facilitation fee, I'd actually facilitate marshaling fuel sales through the airport at no charge to myself, just pass through. It'd be mostly just ramp kind of fees and hosting over there and providing secure storage. So the airport is already fenced around one, so it just needs one more set of locks for classified information for cryptology, storage, overnight, and helicopter, which would meet the standard, which is good. And then phase two, I'd like to actually target some of the emerging technologies in aviation, general aviation and military. UAS systems are huge. And the fact that we have such close proximity to the restricted area makes Keystone Airport a perfect test and training facility. I've opened some dialogues with UF and Embry-Riddle, some contacts in the US Army as well, National Guard, and it just makes sense being able to facilitate storage, test and development here with an access road directly to Camp Landing or close proximity, and possibly even I've been looking into the Department of Transportation has an initiative on advanced air mobility, essentially vehicles that take off and land, a vertiport type thing. One thing they haven't ever done, really, to my knowledge, a lot of testing is in urban environments. You really can't. Camp Planning actually have a massive urban combat training facility, essentially a city. So I'd like to facilitate the relationship between the two. I'm in pretty close contact with the S3 support unit at Camp Landing and could facilitate those under research grants, university and military, and then provide a location to support logistically. We have our own way you could actually land a C-130 on, and we'd have access over the southwest area, so I was thinking to be able to offload and do logistics outside of where we usually do, which would be closing down a taxiway or something like that. So that's kind of where I'm at. Admittedly, I'm pretty much new to this, but I don't plan on going anywhere in the next 20 years. I'd like to kind of grow something here that gets me home and lets me do it. So that's kind of me in a nutshell and what I got in mind. Happy to answer any questions. Good.
So I just want to add that I've said for a while now, the airport is well suited to be a military support airport with the proximity to Camp Landing. And I think Tyson has those connections that would be needed to make things happen, because I've tried to get military fuel sales. It's hard without a DLA fuel contract, which is kind of expensive and very time consuming, but Tyson makes a phone call and we sell some fuel. So that's, I just think that's the direction we need to go. And I think the airport needs to be as diverse as possible in our income and revenue stream. So getting something else started here, I think, is a very positive thing. So, and I don't know that it was, necessary for us to go down the full rabbit hole of his proposal. It was, more of a, this is what I'd like to do. Do I fit here? Tyson knows that may have to move or whatever needs to be done. So.
Just to add to that too, so I am a local tenant. I fly a general aviation pilot as well. And I'm not a corporate entity, a huge corporate entity. I've owned an LLC for 10 plus years now and have the means to which to do business legally and whatnot. But I also look forward to working with the board and with the airport. I know many of you from being around here because I fly here. And I'm I'd like to see this place grow, to where eventually we're not in a litigation with a racetrack. We're actually I'd love to see the entire west and north side grow into aviation businesses, And I believe that there is the appetite, and this is the perfect environment to do it, especially in that crawl, walk, run as we get into UAS systems. I read an interesting article earlier today that said balloonists were the first aviation. And the minute the Wright brothers started flying, the balloonists were like, oh no, these guys should never fly. They're dangerous. And then airplanes took over and it became no big deal. They interacted. And then helicopters were invented. And all the aviation fixed wing guys were like, no, those are too dangerous. It could never happen.
They're still dangerous.
They still are. And then it's the same thing I'm thinking with UAS systems, right? Right now, as pilots, a lot of us are like, whoa, no, keep them out of here. But ultimately, 10 years, 15 years from now, we're going to look back when everything's going to be copacetic. I'd like to put with the University of Florida, proximity to Embry-Riddle, Camp Landing National Guard training base, this is the perfect environment to fuse that. And I believe we could get a lot of federal grant money, university grant money, and be kind of a pioneering test bed for some of these capabilities. And that's what I personally, envision myself is building a business that lets me kind of retire at what I do and grow that here. So that's kind of what I want to do. But again, I'm not a Fortune 500 company coming in here that wants to do my own thing. And I'm very open and amenable to guidance from people who've been here longer than me and know more than I do. So
I do have a few questions. And looking at your proposal, it seems like a really good thing. I would agree with that. One problem we encountered when MHD Rockland was gonna go over there is, and Bill can put this in engineering terms, it'll be the correct nomenclature, but one of the problems is gonna be, there is an old existing taxiway that is degraded, or it's in bad shape. I see that with rotary wing, you can hover taxi. With fixed wing, you've got a taxi on a hard surface. How would you plan to get into the network of the other taxiways here? Because I believe Bill said it's gotta be a right angle that you come in. You couldn't come into it currently.
The taxiway that connects to the end of the runway is non-standard.
Correct.
I don't think the FAA would ever approve that for being paved or improved as an access point to the runway.
And in our master plan shows a taxiway on the other side of that runway.
I can borrow from the Rockland drawing.
Would you be able to facilitate paving that all the way in? Would your group be able to afford something like that? That's gonna be a pretty major expense, I think.
Ignore part of this, but this is the graphic that was drawn for an MHD Rockland site, and it supported the environmental assessment that was done for this whole area. So far, most of this west side road is all that's been built. Tyson, I think, is looking at an area generally in here. And you can see that when Rockland was looking at a site in the general vicinity, the requirement would be to build a 90-degree taxiway connector just opposite to the one that's there now on Alpha, so that you could access the runway at a 90-degree angle at the threshold. So this piece of remnant pavement, although I know it's probably used casually now for tugging aircraft, it would not be something that should or could be used for powered aircraft taxiing to the end of the runway. So something like that in blue, would need to be constructed before anybody in this part of the airfield could access runway 5.
So to Scott's question, the short answer, the immediate answer is right now for all of the aircraft that I facilitate and handle, it's not necessary. All of these are aircraft de Havilland Twin Otters, Cessna Caravan, most things in the military special operations arsenal are all field expedient, unimproved runway airplanes. They could taxi off. My point would be to get started for myself personally, it's not a factor to house aircraft of those types over there in phase 2, phase 3. As things grow and it necessitates that thing, yes, I would
Then
be
you
able to
could.
provide funding and do that. And there's probably.
And you might be able to pull some strings where we couldn't to get that done.
My former organization has put a Cat 2 ILS into a runway that does about 120 operations per year.
Well, yes, you're our man then.
It's in the realm of the possible.
So, and my concern with that is, even if you had, and we'll just call it bush plane with overinflated tires and large ground clearance, like the Otter, it would be dangerous, in my opinion. First off, the runway in lights would have to go to the recessed, because it worries me every time they tug a P3 over there, they're gonna take out those lights on the end of the runway. But the other thing is, you're at a 45-degree angle to approaching traffic. You know, for you to pull out with any aircraft from that over there, and I have seen on the weekends, I don't know who does it, but I've seen maybe 3 times in the 12 years I've been on the board, I've seen airplanes land there and taxi over there, but it's just dangerous like it is. So I was just curious how you might do that. The other thing that comes to mind, you're talking about buying fuel. Would you have your own fuel trucks over there that you would just buy, and Craig would facilitate maybe you just buying and putting in your truck, or would our truck be going over there?
No, and this is his attendant as well. So my business initiatives have nothing to do on fuel sales. And in my opinion, where I'd like to go with that, there's not enough profit margin in it for me to even necessitate. So it would all be through here. At some point, if need dictated, what I would probably do is temporarily fuel storage tanks, if I had, a need that demanded it and whatnot, but that would be purchased at retail through here, or
Okay.
at least a price somewhat above wholesale. But That's, fuel sales are not really on my budget, and being a tenant and a steward of the airport, I realize fuel sales are the lifeblood of this airport and most municipals. So I have zero desire to even try to capitalize on that.
So you guys would just fly the aircraft or taxi them over here to fuel?
Correct.
Okay, because, and the problem I have is, if you go to Gainesville Airport, for instance, and they've done a major reconfiguration, but they have a service road inside the field with a jet fuel truck. The jet fuel truck, I never see it going down a taxiway. I never see a jet fuel crossing an active runway. So my concern would be that you bring the aircraft over here for fueling, or we'd have to build some type of a road to get around the runway, I would think. I wouldn't think we'd want our jet fuel truck going across an active runway.
It could go down, it could go back and come down Airport Road and go in a gate,
No, these trucks are not legal for road use. They can't go on the street.
private road.
No, and that's the type of thing, if
I don't know.
dictated, what I'd like to do is actually go through the airport and reach out to Titan direct and have Titan provide that extra fuel and possibly a truck as a pass-through cost on my end to facilitate the event. And then that truck, provided, would be legal. This is what we do for military operations, a lot of places.
Okay.
Like Avon Park, we reach out to Avon
Yeah,
Park.
we were gonna take our fuel truck to town one time to have it worked on, and we found out it cannot go on any public roads. It's because of the collision design, they're not made for impact on the highway.
To that point too, it's another easy workaround for most of what I do is, except for the 18-year-old kid that was driving the military fuel truck. That one is legal. So what we, the original intent was to buy 6,000 gallons of Jet A to put into 2 fuel trucks that are military trucks, and they are authorized, they're road legal and whatnot, and they would drive them around. So that's another option as well. Most of the parties that I would host have that type of logistics built in that they would do, and we would just sell fuel directly out of the fuel point to them. Again, fuel's not really, other than profiting to the airport, that's really not my only intention of fuels.
And the last thing I've got, what is the name of your company? Paragon 13?
Development group,
Okay. Are you the sole owner of that, or do you have partners?
I'm the sole engineer.
Okay, so if we were given, and I realize we don't have to vote on this tonight, but if and when you come to us and you've got a hard proposal and you're ready to move on this, how quick could you pull the trigger? I see you gave a timeline of this many months for this, and
No, that timeline is extremely realistic. If not, I could, honestly, my intent is to accelerate some of this either way, just working with Greg and bringing some training events in. I still maintain my military free fall jump master rating, and I work for Joint Special Operations Command doing free fall training, trying to target some of that's coming here anyway. And their plan was to buy fuel at Cecil, but I've just already recommended that they buy fuel here in their cost of 235, which we'll probably do. So my point is I can actually capitalize on this through my business almost immediately. But what I'd really like to do is start small, right? I want to start with the land lease, right? And being able to put some temporary structures just to get going and validate the concept and move on from there. And have, as I mentioned in the proposal, about $500,000 in private equity available to move on as needed.
would that include fencing for the landing zone? Or how would that work? Because I know when y'all were operating that, somebody told me y'all were stopping traffic going into the firm every time the helo would land because of the proximity to the road, or is that not true?
That's also something I haven't been directly involved with because I haven't had any real authority to do so. I've helped out. We had some military Black Hawk pilots that were putting out over CTAP that the airport was closed due to military operations, which is actually not true or illegal. So I kind of helped those guys. Because your pilots, actually, your military pilots, just, hey guys, you can't actually do that, but here's the plan, here's the traffic pattern.
It happens every time we get a military group in
And they
here.
offered to help jump master as well as be an easy safety officer for these guys too. And a lot of that, they have no idea. They're like, oh, we're gonna get hit in free fall. Well, not really. The traffic pattern altitude here is 1,200 feet.
Right.
You're gonna get a canopy at 5,000 feet. So you're gonna have some things. So that type of thing, just some information sharing. It's worked well thus far. So I've basically been doing what I'm proposing for free for the last, 12 months, 18 months, and talking to my peers that are in these management positions in the military. They're more than agreeable to paying an exercise facilitator to do so. So I would basically, the airport would be getting, I think, an added value from that, just in general safety, having someone who knows military aviation and general aviation kind of helping coordinate too, and also passing that information through to the appropriate people.
Well, his
Yeah.
plan, Scott, I think sounds excellent, and I think it would be just a win-win for the airport
I agree.
to increase the aviation activities here. And I'd like to encourage him to see about crafting a formal proposal.
So he's provided us his plan, and so what I would suggest, Mr. Banks, get with Craig and start pulling together information as far as specific areas, because we'll need to know that to calculate ground lease, as well as working with Mr. Taylor on lease documents and get that part of it moving. And we'll be able to get that information back to Mr. Banks as far as the ground lease costs.
Oh.
Hey, Bill, I have a question for you. Do you think the FAA might consider some mitigating circumstances to facilitate some traffic on that angled taxiway? And the reason I ask is taxiway Alpha going out to 1129 is not 90 degrees. It is pretty much 45 and runs through other RPZs and those kinds of things.
I'm willing to help you ask anything. I think the difference there, the angled over there is to stay out of the 29 RPZ. So that an aircraft at the hold position is not in the RPZ. And it doesn't connect to 2-3 at the end of the runway. It still connects to the side of the runway. So from a geometric standards, they're gonna throw that back. But again, other than the fact that this airport's already on the FAA's radar, asking questions and helping with, the lease has to be reviewed by the FAA anyway. 7460s have to be done, notwithstanding the earlier conversation. There's a lot of hoops to jump through, not just airport board hoops, but the board needs to help facilitate FAA hoops. But yeah, giving them sketches and plans and getting their feedback, starting with the Orlando office level it's appropriate to do that and see what they would agree to. And they're gonna wanna look at the length of the lease, the dollar value of the lease, what lease terms you have.
Are the RC flyers currently on that location?
Yes.
To the right of it.
Pardon me?
They're off to the side of it.
Are they?
And there is an area we talked about moving them. They're gonna have to be moved. You won't be able to coincide with them there, so,
Do they have,
or they'll have to go away.
they don't have a lease?
No, they've got a lease, but this is parallel to it, and you can't have a rotary wing. And, well, what does one of those helos cost? $40 million?
Roughly half that these days, but.
Oh, just 20 million, okay. So I wouldn't want an RC plane flying near a $20 million helicopter or whatever it may be. And something's got to be done there. The other thing I see with this map, and I know this is just a tentative drawing, is it cuts across their egress going in there. So something will have to be worked out there. They have no way to get in if we do it.
Yeah, those details will have to be.
One other thing for Bill. Bill, did you tell us that the FAA discourages any leases over 20 years now?
No, they discourage leases over 50 years.
Oh, 50 it was.
Yeah.
So he could
It's
do the
different.
30 and then the reopener for another 20 after that or whatever, or another 30 or whatever.
And they have a different policy for aeronautical uses versus non-aeronautical. This would
Okay.
clearly be an aeronautical use. So just, again, the other discussion, there's a lot of similar things, but there's some different things between an aeronautical and a non-aeronautical lease.
Right.
We don't have to get a release in this case, but they do want to review the lease. You don't have to have fair market value, but they do want to review the lease value and see how it's calculated and make sure it makes sense. That should be part of it, not my business, but the term, the length of the lease you're interested in should be part of your formal proposal.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of difference between a 5+5 and a 20+20.
Yeah, that's something I also need to get a little more familiar with. I just listed 30 because quite literally I plan on being here for the next 30 years and growing something, so I put that on there. But I'm more than amenable to work with the board and what's for the best interest in the airport as well. I said I'm approaching this as a tenant as well, as an entrepreneur. And definitely I'm looking forward to a constant dialogue and, going on with the board and with the airport too, helping guide that. Because a lot of what I envision is actually just good for the entire airport. And as a school of aviation, as everybody here is as a member of this board. So I look forward to that constant dialogue.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
I got one other question, real quick. You're driving to Eglin and you got an airplane and you can't fly to Eglin? They won't let you land at Lake
Civil air
Amphibian?
land permits into the Eglin ranges are not easy to come by. No problem. Fly Eglin Airport.
Okay, I'm just checking.
Plus coming in at, quick story for the aviators, when you're learning to fly in a T-41 at 90 knots, and there's 6 F-15s and F-16s. and
Yeah,
there's
that's true.
approaches behind you, and, you know, tower asks you to expedite, it's as fast as you can
Yeah,
go.
it doesn't-
As fast as
You're
you can.
pedaling as fast as you can, right? Okay.
No, you have to try. Yeah, once you get everything else, I'll,
All right.
Is there anything expected of the board at this point, or just wait?
No. We wanted Mr. Banks to come share his plan, his idea with us, give us a heads up, and he'll be working with Craig to work through the final details.
appreciate it.
Thanks.
See you later.
Thank you, Mr. Banks. All right, moving on. I had 2 items, role of board members. We are at a point in the year by our bylaws that tonight, it's the last item on our agenda, but we will be electing a chairman and a vice chairman. Those are the 2 officers that we have. Within our board, we do have roles. Each of us have roles, as your agenda has your title on there, whether it's education or intergovernmental or natural resources, forestry, safety, security. So one of the things that Craig had come to me about was if we could add a position that once was part of this board, and that's a secretary position, mainly with the idea that that secretary would be responsible for doing the minutes for our meetings. Right now, we're having to pay someone to do that, and they're doing a good job. But we're looking at that possibility of having a secretary position on our board. That person would also, in conjunction with the airport manager, be involved too more with leases and making sure those leases are up to date, that everything's current. So there would be some other clerical type things associated with that. I had suggested I had an idea, and I put it in the agenda here about knowing that Colonel Burney works with Emory-Riddle and being involved with a lot of high schools and programs, aviation programs. I was thinking about maybe him swapping with Mr. Dagenet, but my understanding is, Colonel, that you're willing to assist him with that.
I will be on his wing. He is
So,
doing a fine
okay, you're
job.
going to be the wingman.
I'm gonna be
All
the
right.
wingman.
And that's fine. I appreciate all Mr. Dagenet has done. The recent visits that we've had with kids out here have been great. And even had one of the new city council members last night ask if he could bring his son out here. So he wants him to be, more aware of aviation and the airport. So we appreciate all you've done and will continue to do with the CTE program there at the high school and with getting the aviation word out there. So so in general, what I am asking is everyone right now comfortable with the position that you're in? Some of that may change with who becomes chair and vice chair, but are we all good? You still good with forestry? Good, because you're the only certified. You're the only certified person for that.
Good one.
We're going to give you a lot of wiggle room anyways. All right. As far as the secretary position, does anybody want to volunteer for that or be a part of that?
How much are we paying who are we paying? Is it Lindsay?
He's right behind you.
Lindsay, okay. So you're asking a person on the board to help, is it to negotiate leases or just review the leases?
Just more clerical to oversee some of the stuff that needs to be looked at. Pardon?
Clerical reviews.
Yeah. And do minutes, mainly for the minutes
Yeah.
section.
That sounds more like it's getting into a job to me. If they're reviewing leases, almost like an employee would do. I may be wrong, but
Actually,
I didn't say anything about leases. I primarily asked about minutes.
okay.
minutes are there. What I see is that there's a spreadsheet they have anyway that lists all of the leases and it start time, end dates. And those are the things that we really need to stay on top of. So it would be, that person would be just basically reviewing that and then getting back with Craig if there's a need, that something needs to be looked at.
I got you. Well, I can tell you, I don't want to be the secretary, so
I was fixing
Go around
to
the table.
nominate you, Scott. You was,
and y'all know how long-winded I am. It would be like a volume, I'm the book of the minutes, I mean, there'd be every detail. You definitely don't want me.
If you've taken your ethics training, they cover that as one of the last parts of that ethics training. And they do mention that minutes are not to be verbatim, they're to be a brief summary. The important thing is who made the motion, who made the second, and then what the vote was, the result of the vote. That's really what's required by law. So, all right. So we'll talk about the secretary position maybe after we have the vote for our chairman and vice chairman. The second thing I had on my agenda was I had provided for you in your packet a performance evaluation and timeline for our airport manager. Actually, I'd been thinking about this for a while, and interesting enough, the mayor and I were talking about something else, and she brought up the same subject because if you've been watching any of the city council meetings or have attended, the city manager is in the process of his performance evaluation as well. So very appreciative to the mayor for sharing the template that she had, and quite frankly, full transparency, I plagiarized a lot of that as far as the format. I did change the information so it would be more directly related to Craig's job description that's there. So this is a rough draft, and what I want the board to do is review the draft, and if there's anything that you think needs to be added or revised, then get back with me or the chairman. And then what I also included there was I do need to make a correction. If you have the timeline in front of you, the performance evaluation timeline, I had July the 8th listed there. Actually, that's the second Tuesday in July. It should have been July the 1st. So, we'll make that correction as part of just a correction to the draft. The other thing under that same column for July about completing your PE assessment, I want to add there before August 5th, because on August the 5th, that PE process will be that we will take our evaluation and we're going to submit those to Mr. Van Zant, city manager. Mr. Van Zant is going to score, you'll be scoring it if you looked at it. He'll be pulling all of those numbers together, and the narrative evaluations will be shared with Craig at the time of the PE review. One of the things that came up last night that the mayor emphasized was that when, in our case, I had put there public or private review as an option. One of the things that the mayor mentioned last night is that once the PE evaluations come back in, all of that with the narratives will be provided to the employee, but then each councilman will sit down with the city manager to review that. So I don't think there was going to be a public review of that. So that's up to our board if we would like to do the same thing. I like that idea of each of us sitting down with Craig to review that performance evaluation. So if you want me to, I'll change this. I'll get that changed, that we'll do a private review with individual board members. And so again, this time frame works out because we have our budget coming up. October 1 starts our new fiscal year. By ordinance, we have to have our final budget to the city by August 15th. Whatever day that falls on, obviously we want to do it on a weekday, but that's what's listed actually in one of the ordinances I was reading earlier this morning. So we're going to start this budget process probably July, August timeframe. I'm sorry, July timeframe. In that, in the past, the chairman, the airport manager, and fiscal clerk has always sat down and gone through last year's previous budget, looked at historical incomes and expenditures, and then formulated a new budget that's brought to the board for our review and then approval. Once we approve it, we submit it to the city council. By ordinance, they have to approve our budget. And then that budget's actually included with the city budget that goes to the Tallahassee. Did I get that right, Mr. City Manager?
Yes, sir. Your budget, it's just a really budget summary that gets advertised in the newspaper. We have the city general fund budget, the community redevelopment agency budget, the cemetery budget, and it's just a big snapshot, and then whatever y'all come up in your own spreadsheets, you do. So
What does that to do with the performance appraisal?
It's a separate item.
Oh, okay.
But if I could, Mr. Chairman, I'm not saying I won't tally your numbers, but this is the first I'm hearing about it, and I need to follow the advice of an old air traffic controller, push to talk, not push to think. I don't know there would be any conflict in that, but I did not know that was coming up tonight, so let me just mull that a little bit. I don't think there should be a problem with it. I can do basic math, 3, 4, 5 on average. With 7 of you, I don't see any issues there. But, and I would, if I do.
Are we talking about the budget now? or-
No, sir, I'm talking about, no.
I'm getting really
Sorry.
confused here.
I do have an answer for you, General. I'm sorry, I do.
I'm talking strictly right now,
Greg.
sir, about the tallying your evaluations. There's 7 of you.
Yeah.
So you would do independent evaluations of 1 through 5, and you would also write narrative comments. If I do this, I will require those narrative comments to come to me in Word so I can quickly assemble them. I'm quite frankly not adept enough at PDF. If all of y'all chicken scroll your pilot writing in abbreviations and drop me 7 loose leaf pieces of paper with your end scratch, I will definitely be a breaker.
Yeah, so we're talking about putting this into some type of electronic format that we're gonna fill out electronically, not do.
We can do that. Yeah, it's a Word document right now, so.
It was on the PDF is how we printed it out, so.
It's a PDF right now, I think.
Yeah, we need
That's how we
scanned
received
everything
it,
in
yeah.
probably for the packet.
To back up, you've got, so if this is a draft and did you want our opinions or any changes?
Yes. For this.
And you want that deadline by what?
Next meeting,
Okay,
June meeting.
and then by July 1st, you want us to have it filled out? Even though it says July 8th?
July 1st is what he meant.
And then August would be all these gathered, and if Charlie decides to take that, because he's gonna be secretary too, he's gonna be busy here.
No, he said completely foggy.
And September 7th would be, the review, or in that week or 2-week period would be the sit downs with the airport manager.
No, he said that we would have it completed by August 5th.
Right, that would be submitting it to Charlie's the way I'm
Correct.
reading it.
Right.
That's correct.
Okay,
Okay.
what's the September 2nd? Is that where you sit down with the employee or?
Yes.
Okay,
Well, that will be when Charlie will bring that back to us, have given it back to us.
okay,
And then from that, we can schedule the private review
okay,
with Craig. Now, the reason I jumped over to the budget is that this will be a tool that we can use for determining increases. Because in the past, what we have done typically,
Increases in what?
salary.
Okay.
So
merit increase.
our payroll has basically been lumped in with everything else as far as if we were going to do an increase. So the idea is to get back to doing a PE, for an employee. And then from that, then we can base merit increases
whatever.
And I don't completely understand the whole merit thing because I've never been in that type of a atmosphere. I mean, I know it's obvious reasons and all, but why we changing and doing something different now versus just, hey, if somebody's doing a good job, you commend them. If they're not doing a good job, then you say, hey, we need to have a meeting. I need to talk to you. Just to me, it seems like this is a lot of extra. I mean, again, I know a lot of the business world does these kind of things, so that's why I want to ask this because this is.
Sam doing in the fire department?
Yeah, the best union in the state.
So, and maybe I'm just way behind because, like I said, maybe everybody else in this room's had to be a part of those kind of things. And I was just curious why now and what the main purpose is of it, what the necessity is of it.
As I mentioned, it can provide a tool to provide some background and documentation to validate that.
Yeah.
I mean, who are we validating it to? Because we're the ones that make the decision, right?
Well, when I worked at Seminole, for instance, and got into management, they used to just do a CPI raise. And then they evolved as time went on to, if the person's doing a really great job, you can maybe reward them a little bit more. That's what the merit-based is. If they're underperforming, they may not get as good a raise. And that's what the merit-based system. And probably the where and now or the why and now, I think can be attributed to the city is doing things differently. I don't know if when their last evaluation was done until y'all came along and decided y'all wanted to start having kind of a way for the council people to all be involved with the
Right. And in the past,
evaluation.
it was kind of loosely done. In my 52 years, I've had 52 performance reviews. And I've actually reviewed people and they've reviewed me. I look at it as an opportunity for the employee to understand how they're doing because you miss things, you don't say things. You never hear that you're doing a good job, you hear when you're doing a bad job. It's an opportunity to talk about both and to reward them for incredible things that they've done throughout the year. But it's also an opportunity for their personal growth when you identify things that maybe they need help with. Just unique things. They may not even think, oh, I didn't think I could really, that's something you really want me to do. Yeah, I like to see you chase that, right? On the documentation side, like you said, Bobby, it's a trail of your history in your career path. And I find it shocking really that other places maybe don't do this, but I haven't entertained one. And all the places I've worked, probably 7 or 10 different places throughout the country, and a performance review was always done.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe in a union situation, maybe not, because they negotiate and all that. But in private business, and this is a business, whether you want to call it that or not, you have to appear to be professional. And that is the professional standard, is to follow this type of practice. And that's why we've initiated it with the city.
I think the other thing it does too, I had employees that would get upset if their evaluation wasn't done on time, because they really wanted to know. And I got others that just could care less, because we did have a union there and they were going to get their raise regardless. They didn't care. But it's all up to the individual to take it as either constructive criticism or, looking back, and especially if you got multiple people doing it. Craig, for instance, there may be something that a couple of people put, this appears to be not your forte, or it's a weak point. And as long as he's looking at it in a constructive manner, maybe it gives him a roadmap to look, I need to focus on this area to improve better.
Well, the beauty of this.
That's what you do with it.
In this performance review, I wasn't sure how they were handled throughout municipality practice situation. So I found it, and it was actually from Atlantic Beach, and Mr. Commando actually created it. So all I did, I like the simplicity of it, which I think y'all will find it's really straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
And the grading piece of it is you put down the grade based on the specific role that they have in that category. I think there's 5 categories. Some of them are basic routine practice, daily stuff, but some of them are very specific to the role, okay? And then those scores are averaged. Say if there's 10 items, I think, on the basic responsibilities, and you get a 5, or let's say you get a 3 on all of them, then you've got a total score of 3. And you divide that by 10, so the average score was 3.0. So out of 5 categories, you take those scores to come up with a total score, which is really simple. And then on the cool thing about what you're talking about, Scott, is on a narrative piece. The beauty of it is you're going to individually do it face-to-face, one-on-one. You could do it, like you said, publicly, which I don't like that. I think it doesn't give someone opportunity to be honest. And the employee has a chance to tell you too what they think. It's not just about the employer. And so the good thing is you can have this really honest conversation privately. And that's why I looked into finding out, could we do that? And Rich said, yes, you do it individually, which is perfect. So your narrative comments, which is great because you can say whatever you think that you think is doing great or not doing so great, that you can get some help on. It's really helpful to kind of guide you through this. I mean, there's only 2 pages where it has a few questions. And then when you get ready to sit down with them, you can pull up your narrative and talk to them one-on-one. So it's still very private, it's very specific, and it's not everybody else's comments. It's the only thing that's average is total scores of all 7 of you. That makes sense?
Yeah.
And the timeline's important, just like you said, because, you know, he's gonna get a raise, I hope. He better, or you're gonna have me to talk to. But I feel like, you know, with the timing of it, it makes people accountable, make sure you're getting it done, and everything's rolling. So it's not something you just kind of keep putting off and keep putting off. You get it done. And he's actually past due, because he's been here for a year now, so.
That's
It
correct.
was very important to me that we get Charlie's done and done as soon as possible, because his year was in January, so.
And I mentioned weak points, but also when somebody's doing a really good job, it gives you an opportunity or them an opportunity to see on paper like,
Yep.
yes, I've got it right, or I'm
It's
doing
a-
good.
It's a documentation of your
Yes.
success. And I'll tell you what, all the jobs I've had, you forget all the good things you've done. And as you continue to build your resume, you know, you go back and you go, oh, I'm gonna add this to it, add that to it, because you forget. So it really, it's important to me.
No question, it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
I got one question regarding the individual bullets on there. Did you get a chance to look at them and agree that these are the things that you really think are the important aspects of your job?
Briefly.
Okay. That's the only thing I would recommend doing as we build the individual scoring things. He may think that we didn't include some in there that is really the most important thing he's doing, and we didn't add it into his,
And
onto his
that's
list.
certainly a good point. What we had to do is take it from the charter, the job description that was
Yeah.
published, and the contract.
Yeah,
And we combined
Yeah.
all of that.
to me, it looks good.
Categories. It took a lot of work, like
Yeah.
when we did Charlie's. And then I wanted him to sign off on, did he agree or not agree, or did he want to take something out or whatever?
I think it looks
And then
great.
that's how we came to it.
Yeah, the only thing I would recommend is you give him a chance to look at it too, to see if there's anything we missed.
And he got it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's awesome.
So any changes that you may have, if you can direct those back to me, and I'll include that with a revision, and we'll get that back out.
How do we do that without violating the sunshine law? Do we give them to Craig to get to you, or give them to Charlie to give to you? Mail them to Charlie maybe? Let him be a pass-through.
You need the inputs by next
I think
meeting.
if you just by consensus, agree that Mr. Kirkland will be the creator of this document, you guys just give him
Yes.
that duty.
Give it direct to him and that's it.
Just like
So I
you
can
give
email
Mr.
him.
DeJonis a duty to go bring kids to the airport. You can act in the authority that your group gives you.
But I mean, we can email these changes to him, and that's no problem.
Yes, sir, he can just
Okay.
coalesce them and bring them back to you.
Okay.
I'll be the secretary.
There you go. Volunteered, y'all all heard it.
All right, all right,
Nice job on that. I think that's great.
thank you. I thank the mayor too.
Yeah.
She's my cohort in getting that done. All right, moving down to, we've already taken care of Mr. Tyson Banks. Ms. Hall.
Okay, so, last meeting took about, got the application in to the Florida Forest Service to try and get some money. And once again, we have been turned down. So they had, I guess, a lot of applications and everything. And then they found out a week or so ago, they let me know that we were not going to get any cost share. So once again, we're going to have to foot the bill for some of these things. The nice thing is I think that the stuff we have to do forward is some of it can be done in this budget and then some can be pushed into the next budget. So I think planning ahead, putting some of that money there, we can recoup some of that. I've been out and looked at Florida Forest Service. They have a cost share program. And basically you just apply, they'll do up to 250 acres and you tell them what you're going to do and how much it's going to cost and everything. And they basically just have, I mean, we're talking about private citizens, everybody
say why they
applies for
charge
it. They just said there were a lot of people applied and the money ran out. So
Is there a way we can be more competitive in the future?
I don't know of any way to be more competitive. We applied last year, we didn't get it either. The justification then was that we were doing mostly herbicide work and they were interested in mechanical. This year we did mechanical and we still got turned down. So I'm not sure what it is, but I mean, I was being helped by the Duval County Forester. So I mean, he was involved in doing the application, you know, so he was pushing it for us, but we just were not selected. So I don't know that there's anything else you can do, because it's basically, I think, just put in what the plans
much
are
money
for
would
each
it
one of
be?
them. It was around $73,000. So, and that was planting, that was purchasing longleaf pine, the planting cost of the longleaf pine, the chopping, because I believe, once I went out there and looked at the amount of material that we have out there, you can't burn it. And you know how things are right now. There's no rain. There's been no rainfall. And I mean, that would be dangerous to burn anything that vertically standing. So what I was going to do was go and talk to a contractor that I know of and see what his estimate would be to get that stuff on the ground. And that would take care of some lingering small, you could see some of the sand pine and stuff out there. That would bring all that stuff down to a level where then you could safely burn it. The problem is that there's just so much material out there. You've got to get it cleared. You cannot plant pine under anything else. So that's what it would cost to try and do it. But I'm going to look at getting an estimate from someone just for budgeting purposes, and talk some more to the Florida Forest Service too about what their ideas are about, because they'll obviously be helping us with any kind of burning. But I'll have some of that together for us at the next one, because I'll be getting prices and things together for the budget.
So that leads to a good point, because I just mentioned budget. So those are the kind of items that we need to have specific information on that we can bring into our budget and then figure out, okay, how are we going to phase this out to be able to do it?
By when?
Pardon me?
By when?
You said starting July 1st, beginning of July, we're gonna start with the budgeting.
You go ahead and get it. If you got it earlier, get it to Craig,
Okay.
by all means.
Oh, and I had one other thing too was, and Bill left. Well, so one thing was pointed out, I think at the upper end, there's an RPZ over here near Blanding, correct? And I think that part of that area that had standing timber in it, and someone had brought up that had been an issue, and now we've sprayed it. So obviously we don't want to put timber back in there again, so I'm gonna need help delineating where that is, and then that would further reduce the number of acres that we're treating. And if there were other areas, the 100 acres that we talked about out here, some of that was sprayed. It's not gonna be part of it, so all of that'll bring the cost down too. But I don't know who will have that expertise to kind of,
Get
we
with
cut
Craig,
some of that out.
get with Craig, and then he can get with Bill. He can give you the exact.
Okay, because I'll have to get it on the ground, know what, where it'll be. And, we can flag it, we can do, some other things, but just to make sure that I don't do anything with that. And unless, of course, you may want it chopped and then nothing else done to it, so at least it's down. So that would be another question of,
Yeah.
we want that
We
handled.
need it cleared down to ground level so that grass can grow in there and we can start mowing it. That's what's happened, like off of the end of runway 2-3, is back when Maria was here, I said, we've got all these oak saplings that are starting up, and if I don't get them, so we started mowing all the way to the gas line now. We don't mow it every time. I mow it about every 6 months just to keep the trees at bay. And if we could get that area, and it's depicted there, Craig could probably show
So
you where.
you probably want everything done except planting.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what it sounds like, because that's
But
the
once
only
we
way you're
get
gonna
it,
get grass.
there's a green space, then we just gotta maintain the mowing over
It's
it.
much easier to maintain it.
Yeah. it
So we
is.
would just need to delineate it once we decide to plant where that line is, so that's not quite as pressing, but,
Yeah,
okay,
we could figure that out.
okay.
Getting back to this down here, so, you said that you could do part of it probably in this fiscal year and then part of it in the next. So if it's got to be chopped up, is that the part you're talking about? The
Yeah.
ground prep would be in this part?
Yeah, because
And then
you
the
can do it in the
planning.
latter part. You want to wait as long as you can on some of this because it's rotting. And the more it rots, the easier it is to chop.
Okay,
And so in my mind, if it would work that way, we would kind of put it down near the time right when we're switching, because I think we have some money still left that we had not
Allocated.
actually done all the allocations. So, we could do some of it then, use up that portion of it and maybe set up the rest for the
and
next.
then go into the next year. So my question next would be, I don't have a green thumb, but I know there's certain plants you can move during the winter time. It's the best time because they're dormant. Can you plant these pine trees any time of the year?
No.
So
All
how,
planting, well, first of all, you have to get them from the nursery. The nurseries are all preparing them, usually about October is the earliest that they'll do them. And a lot of times, I don't know if longleaf specifically, they wait till longer, but usually about 1st of December is when a lot of these are planted.
so you
want
can
'em when
plant
they're
them?
dormant.
Okay,
Yeah, so you want to put them in the ground during the cooler season or whatever, so they already get used to it. And then when spring comes, they're ready to just take off.
okay.
So what I'd like to recommend is for Ms. Hall to take the 2025
Yes.
forestry master plan and revise that for 2026 to include what we're going to see just for that year. Can you do that?
Yes.
I mean, we got the good template
Sure,
there.
yeah, just like that.
Fiscal year, right?
Yeah, so the
So starting
2025
in
fiscal,
July.
Yes.
2026, okay.
And so, and then when they have those, Buck's not gonna have to be out there digging a hole for each tree, right?
Hand planters would come in and they are very
It'll be
efficient.
Jim and Buck. But they have a machine that comes
No,
on?
no, no, hand planters.
You really do?
Yeah,
And
you
but you
have-
pay them to do it?
Yeah, you pay groups, I mean, they can come in like 25 people at a time and they basically just, they're very efficient. I mean, they can cover, that's what they're used to planting.
Definitely not.
Yeah, they're used to planting the rough areas, and the nice thing is that they put them where that tree's gonna grow, so they
specialized
can
tree.
actually adjust as they're out there, but you kind of keep them in track at the density that you want them to do, and then they just move right through it. I mean, they're
This
very
will be
good.
pretty interesting, because as long as I've been on here, there's never been any trees planted. I mean, they were long before we were on the board, I guess, last time it was done.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating to see how they do it, but,
Do we know when the last time was done?
I don't know, back in the 80s maybe, I think, or,
I don't know.
the exact dates on a lot of this is kind of up in the air so I think it was even in the forest plan, it was kind of estimated, how old some of the timber was and everything, so.
All right. Mr. Van Zandt, I apologize. I skipped over the City of Keystone Heights report, but I'll have you do that after Mr. Dagenet
Okay.
shares his information.
Well, just real quick, just wanted to share with everyone, a couple of weeks ago, we did host the Keystone junior and senior high students out here as part of their annual CTE career field trip. So past few years, I've been involved with the airport. They are taking their CTE students, which stands for Career Technical Education.
There you go.
Yes. To the airport, Clay Electric and
the bank. I don't know which bank, but they went to a.
Capital Bank. Capital Bank.
City Bank.
Yeah, I had Capital City Bank. I had to think just for a second. And so, the junior high came out the first day, and a little bit larger group than the senior high group, but both groups were very well behaved, and we provided them with some information that they could take with them about the airport, about aviation careers in general, and a little personal information about the airplanes that they looked at when they came out here.
You gave them incentive flights too, right?
Yeah, we made, engine noises while they sat in the stands. So,
So we had some more participation from some folks here on the airport this year, well, and last year as well. Tyson Banks have brought his Lake Buccaneer out and let the kids look at it as well. And David Welch brought his airplane out here.
Dean Brock,
Yeah, he did as well.
Yep.
And then they also looked at the P3.
yeah, Randy over there and Lindsay and,
And I've heard back from the folks at the high school that they really enjoyed their time out here.
Thanks.
and we had more time with them too. Before they were, what'd we have, 40 minutes when they were doing it last year?
Last year, like, we only had like 30 or 40
It's
minutes.
pretty brief.
And
So here, they shifted their schedule,
Yeah.
and they had an hour and 40 minutes here with us.
Was it just certain classes or was it like the whole school or, I mean, the whole
I don't know
grade?
how they pick them.
What numbers did we talk? Are we talking like 20 or 200 or?
Well, we had 29 junior high students come out here, and we didn't have as many senior high students. There was like a little less than 20.
Okay.
Uh,
Well,
That was very
it's great PR for the airport. I mean, it goes back, the teachers, staff are getting knowledge about the airport. A lot of people don't know there's a Keystone Heights Airport. They drive by on 100 and just have never realized it. So thank you, David. We appreciate all that you've done and all of the tenants that participated with bringing their aircraft out and of course, Rockland providing the P3s as well for tours. That's good. Sparked some interest maybe in some kids.
Oh, and they got to look at some RC planes this year as well.
Yep.
So
All right.
typically, for those who get involved with model airplanes, get involved with big airplanes eventually.
Yep.
There'll be drone pilots day.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm honored to be your wingman.
All right, Mr. Van Zandt.
Would y'all mind if I sat down with you? 'Cause I want to look
Yes, sir,
everybody in the eye. So
Come to the table.
the city council met last night, swore in 2 new council members. Mr. Welch was one of them. Mr. Ryan Knight was the other. So 40% of my bosses has changed. That's part of the deal, right? I said that the other day and Mr. Welch said, so you listen to me 20% of the time. Every fifth thing he brings up,
On a good day.
I'll accomplish. But everything that you would typically think about in the city of Keystone is going and then some. I appreciate you guys bringing students out here. The mayor and the council hosted 100 and something fourth graders 2 weeks ago while I was in Tallahassee lobbying for Bradford County Road. I don't know how the Bradford County manager has me up there doing his lobbying, but anyway, that's how it worked out with the Keystone Heights priorities in the airport this year. That was the last thing on our list that's still alive at all. I don't have perfect clarity on what's going to go on with the session. They got through with their 60-day session without passing a budget. And some things that could affect the city negatively were rolled into this rural renaissance bill that has to do with community redevelopment agencies. And so they do have the option to pick that back up and discuss and vote on it. So that's kind of the 5,000-foot political view. But if you would just allow me for a few minutes, I've come to know and respect everybody on this board. A lot of you guys I've known a lot of years and decades, and some of you I've known just more recently. But I want to just, if I can, put on my teacher hat. I am qualified to teach social studies in the state of Florida. I don't think my ticket's current, but neither is my helicopter license, but I could probably take off. We have a manager form of government in the city of Keystone, and we have manager form of government here at the airport. Used to be both legislative bodies had more direct roles where like one city council person did finance, one did public works, one did whatever. You guys have operated like that, and Craig, where he went, I guess it's the first professional manager by trade that you've hired that had a lot of varied experience at different airports, is a rated pilot, things like that. You had Maria beforehand that kind of grew into the role. But I think everybody's done a fair job at pivoting, but I don't think any of us have arrived yet. Out of all that's going on with just your normal budget challenges and your hopefully one-offs like your challenges with the firm right now and a non-aeronautical lease, and everybody's trying to make sure it's right. What I am just absolutely dead certain of is that your airport manager is the key to your day-to-day operations here. You, as the airport authority, are appointed political officials. You're appointed by the landowner, which is Keystone Heights City Council. So you hold political office. Everybody loves to hate on politicians, but you all hold political office. You're just appointed. You didn't have to go give stump speeches and raise money to get here, right? So let me just give you a few things, if you would allow me, that are normal and correct professional roles and responsibilities. You guys meet, you communicate during the meeting, you make motions, you decide on things, you develop your budget, you execute your legislative authority to approve your budget, and then you put it in the hands of the airport manager to run day to day, and he hires a bookkeeper or a fiscal clerk to bring you monthly or quarterly financials, however you guys deem to do that. Like tonight with the evaluation, if you guys by consensus gave Mr. Kirkland the authority to act outside of a publicized meeting to collate that through you. You have department heads, so you've given Mr. DeJohn authority to collect up students and provide education material, and Ms. Hall authority to go figure out trees and spraying and whatever forestry people do that we very much appreciate and none of the rest of us know how to do. So those are proper roles to act outside of a meeting. What is not ever authorized proper, I wouldn't absolutely not tolerate it, is if you have an airport authority member roaming around the airport giving direction to airport employees. Yeah, you can't go out there as an airport authority member and roll up on a tenant and tell them they're doing it wrong. Now, if you see something that's a safety violation, you mention it, but that's the airport manager's decision and role to decide how to deal with that. None of us are cops, none of us are whatever. Well, you may hold law enforcement credentials, but unless the sheriff of Clay or Bradford has authorized you to enact those out here, you're not Barney Fife, okay? Same with contractors. If this board authorizes an expenditure out of the budget and you got guys out here paving something or doing whatever they're doing, you as individual board members do not have authority to go interface with all that. The manager may ask you to help from time to time with things, which I think is healthy. You may give each other authority in a public meeting, say we need somebody to go to Tallahassee, or, we pinned the rose on General Eifert to go be the intergovernmental guy and do a better job than I did bringing home some money this year. I think all that is good and healthy, but I just want to be real clear about what you should and shouldn't be doing. I've been super clear with our city council. Our current city council seems to understand that. Not all have in the past. And to be respectful and fair about it, some of those people in the past came from that working council, more like, I'm going to do this and supervise this section, but you're beyond that. You have a very professional manager that's capable of operating the day-to-day budget within those confines, and I would just urge you to allow him to do that the way my bosses have allowed me to do the day-to-day operations in the city. So unless y'all have any questions about that, that's my quick civics lesson for tonight.
Is there a test?
It will be.
What I was afraid of. What I was afraid of.
Be
I just
student
restart the
minds.
video, so if you guys could just, just a second.
Okay. Yeah, we're about to hit our 2-hour limit on our YouTube, so she's gonna get that